Well, let's see. Do we have anybody? Don't have anybody yet. Have a recording, even if Shannon doesn't make it at the beginning. Let me make Cynthia a co-host so you can let people in from the waiting room if you see them up there, because I might not be paying attention. Okay.
Pete, I have a question.
Yeah.
I'm looking at the agenda and I don't see a place for announcements.
There's place for announcements down.
Yeah.
After the election of first vice president, we have some announcements.
I see that, but I don't see a place where one of us can make an announcement.
Well, that'll be the place. We've just got a couple that we put on the agenda because we know they need to be made.
Okay.
But other people can add to that as.
I get somebody in the waiting room and I can't let them in.
Oh, okay. It's Leah. Admit.
Am I not a co-host yet?
I thought I made you a co-host. Yeah, you're a co-host. But maybe you can't let people in. Anyway, keep an eye on that. I just let Leah in. Okay. So I'm going to call the meeting to order. It's 7:08. And I think we can start the program by going down our list of the statewide ballot. Wait, I don't have my very first person. Kin has not checked in yet, I don't think. So we can.
She's not listed on the agenda.
I know the agenda is a little out of date. I've been making last minute corrections to the agenda because we had a few people who were going to speak and dropped out, and we've been doing our best to replace people.
Yeah. Is Freddie going to speak?
Freddie's
on
going
AB
to speak.
3216?
Yes, and I believe on one of the Proposition 22, possibly. I'm still admitting people in from the waiting room. I just let Paula Amezola in.
Can we start with something else besides Ken's thing?
Yeah, we can start with Proposition 16 because William Herrera is here and I have William's visuals so I can put them on the screen when he's ready for them. Why don't we ask people who are just watching or not on stage at the moment to turn off their videos so we'll get more bandwidth, and also so we can also turn off your audio if you're not talking, and that will help with the bandwidth as well. So I'm going to ask William Herrera if you would like to put, hi William, do you want me to put one of the visuals up there right away?
Yes, actually, I was hoping to have them both side by side during.
Not sure I know how to do that on this machine, but
I think I can also do it. I think if I'm allowed to share my screen.
Yeah, let's do it that way.
Is that working? Can everybody see?
It is working. We now see them side by side.
See the two images side by side? Okay, great. Yeah. Wonderful.
And you're talking on Proposition 16, which has to do with, it's the one that the legislature put on the ballot for returning to affirmative action.
That is correct, yes.
You're speaking in favor.
I am.
Very good. Go ahead.
Okay, great. Good evening, and thank you for having me. My name is Will Herrera. I am an 18-year resident of Culver City. I am married to Paula Amezola Herrera, who many of you probably know. She is running on a very progressive agenda for the Culver City Unified School District Board this fall. So my wife and I, Paula, bought our home here in Culver City back in 2002. So we're proud residents of California, of Culver City. I am in favor of Prop 16 because I know from personal experience how education has changed the trajectory of my life. I was admitted to UC Davis in 1994 as an affirmative action admit, coming from a low-income immigrant single mother household. Prop 16 is about offering opportunity for those who are fighting against the odds. Prop 16 is about equity and justice. You see here from the image on the screen to your left, the green image there, we've been fighting for equality for a very long time. But unfortunately, we know it hasn't worked. Especially, this has been pushed in our faces in 2020. We know that we now need equity and justice. Despite my and many other first generation, low income college students of color, despite our hard work and success, we are sadly the exception. The overwhelming majority of our peers are still stuck, unable to see over that fence. They may need one or maybe two extra supports to help them see over the fence. I believe equity and justice will be reached when the percentage of university students matches the percentage of diversity in our population. The second image there to your right is an article from the New York Times. It's a bit old, it's 3 years old, from 2017, but sadly the data has not changed. The dot there represents 1980, and the direction of the arrow is time. At the end of the arrow is 2015. And what this shows pretty clearly here with these arrows is that in Latino and African American Black communities, the representation at top colleges, and top colleges is important to make a distinction here. We're talking about four-year universities, not excluding community colleges, has sadly decreased since 1980. Meanwhile, white and Asian population at top US colleges has increased in relation to their population in the general US population, meaning that the college representation gap has increased since 1980. To me, this encapsulates why we need to vote yes on Prop 16. I know I'm running out of time, so in closing, Prop 16 simply allows those students who have been fighting obstacles their entire life an opportunity to get in the door and prove themselves. Every university in the nation will tell you that the education they provide is enhanced by diversity of thought, experience, and perspective. Our educational system, our global economy, and California's ability to continue being a world leader is dependent on this diversity. Prop 16 simply allows for that opportunity. The opportunity to undo all the systemic inequities that the current Black Lives Matter movement and the current pandemic are highlighting. Inequities in access to jobs, access to healthcare, and of course, access to equitable K-12 education. Please join me in voting yes for Prop 16, for equity and justice for all students. Thank you.
Thanks, William. It was great. Let's see who's next on the list. Actually, we're still going to skip the Proposition 14 for now until I hear that Kin has arrived. Proposition.
Questions, Pete?
Sure. Go ahead.
I just wanted to ask this one really quick because I know it comes up a lot for people who are against Prop 16, but are quotas involved in any way, William? And yeah, that's pretty much it.
Yes, thanks, Daniel. That's a great question. As far as I can tell, no, quotas are not involved, and they actually weren't with the original, in California, at least for the UC system. Quotas were never a requirement. It was just allowing race and ethnicity to be a factor in the decision-making process.
Yeah, do we have any other questions for William on the Proposition 16? Now, I'm not sure if Michelle Weiner is here yet. Is Michelle, has Michelle arrived?
I'm
yet?
here, and it's
you're
Weiner.
here? Oh, Weiner, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Hi, Michelle.
Hi, how are you? Hi, everybody. So I'm presenting tonight on Proposition 17, Voting Rights Restoration for Persons on Parole Amendment 2020. And I've decided that I want to present for and against, because I think in order to have a democracy that works well, we have to evaluate both sides such as they are. So currently, this is an amendment to the Constitution. Currently, the California Constitution disqualifies people with felonies from voting until their imprisonment and their parole are completed. If this is passed, then the it would amend the state constitution to restore voting rights to persons who have been disqualified from voting while serving a prison term as soon as they complete their prison term. In other words, once they start parole, they would then be eligible to vote. Currently, that's not the case. For those of you, so a yes vote supports the constitutional amendment to allow people on parole for felony convictions to vote, and a no vote opposes this constitutional amendment, thereby continuing to prohibit people who are on parole for felony convictions from voting. For those of you who care about fiscal impacts, they are saying hundreds of thousands of dollars, which sounds like a lot of money, but when you consider the state budget, it seems pretty negligible. It's basically for additional registration materials and ballots to cover the new enfranchised people. An argument against was provided by State Senator Jim Nielsen, who pretty much characterizes the people, felons and parolees who would be able to vote as dangerous criminals. So that pretty much sums up the argument that, you know, they're dangerous people, therefore they shouldn't vote, which I think is kind of a dubious argument, but that's his argument. And then there's a group called the Election Integrity Project California that sort of characterizes the vote as a privilege rather than a right. And so the privilege is being withheld from people who have lost the privilege because they are felons. So that's that argument. The argument for the lead legislator on this is Assembly Member Kevin McCarty, who argues that parole is not a punishment, but is a means to reintegrate people into the mainstream. And therefore, parolees should have the right to vote, because without it, they can't have a say on policies that are affecting their lives. The argument continues, you know, they're working, have families, and so on. So of course, they should be able to vote on policies affecting them. Another argument was provided by Tana Vargas Edmond of Executive Director of Initiative Justice. And this is a restorative justice argument that it's not right to have a punitive justice system that robs marginalized people of their political power. Also, you might want to know that 17 of the other states and Washington, D.C. have restored voting rights to people convicted of felonies after the completion of their prison term. In other words, while they're on parole, they are eligible to vote. And there's a lot of other states that have various combinations of this, but this is the relevant one, that 17 other states and Washington, D.C. It's endorsed by people we know and love: U.S. Senator Kamala Harris, Senator Holly Mitchell, Assemblymember Sidney Kamlager-Dove, and the following organizations that we love: ACLU of California and League of Women Voters of California. And this concludes my report. Any questions?
Anybody? Oh, I'm getting an applause from William. Anybody have any questions for Michelle before we move on?
Jackie put one in the chat.
Ah. Jackie Hawthorne says, how big a pool of prospective new registered voters are we talking about? Did you get any information on that, Michelle? You're still muted there.
Jackie, it's an excellent question. I'm sorry I don't have an answer for that, but you know, this is a democracy, and I know, Jackie, that you agree with me that the more people who can vote, the better. But you know, when they're saying it's hundreds of thousands of dollars, it's really a minuscule amount of money. So I really don't know the answer. I can try and find out, though.
I don't have a question, but I remember during one of the debates, Bernie Sanders argued that prisoners should be able to vote. He said they have a stake in our civilization, our country, and
yeah, I was thinking about that when I was reading about this, and it made me think that prisoners should be eligible because they have more time than the average citizen to think, to be thoughtful and research issues. And so why not? why not allow them to vote? I think it's a very good idea.
And they
Yeah.
vote in many other countries as well.
It's good to know. We have a hand raised, Rebecca.
Yes, hi, can you hear me?
Yeah. Yeah.
Oh, good. I am in favor of this. And my reason is that I think we need to do everything we can to make prisoners feel whole again, to make them feel part of society, to make them feel that they are valued, and to show them that their ideas and their concerns matter just as much as anybody else's.
Yeah, I agree. If nobody else has any questions, I'd like to go back to Proposition 14, which was at the top of our list because Kin Gee is here and she's going to talk about that. Kin, you want to unmute yourself and talk about Proposition 14?
Thanks, Pete. Sorry I joined you guys a little late, but Prop 14 is a Stem Cell Research Institute bond initiative. What is it? The ballot initiative would provide $5.5 billion in general obligation bonds for the California Institute for Regenerative Medicine, or CIRM for short. In 2004, when voters approved Prop 71, which created CIRM, and issued $3 billion in bonds to finance CIRM and established a state constitutional right to conduct stem cell research. It's good to know that at that time, in 2004, W was in the White House and we didn't have, there were bans on stem cell research in general. So currently in the year 2020, who's behind it? Real estate investor Robert N. Klein II, a real estate investor. And the largest donor donating $4.63 million to the project, he's behind it, and his associates. What is the fiscal impact of this proposition? It will increase state costs to repay bonds, estimated at $260 million per year over the next 30 years. And who's against it? Marcy Darnofsky, Executive Director of the Center for Genetics and Society, states that there are no longer federal limits on stem cell research funding, which was the justification for the existence of this proposition back in 2004. So today she recommends that the CIRM go ahead and follow suit as privately funded organizations have done to continue pursuing their stem cell research. And she indicates that today, California faces an enormous budget deficit, and our priority these days is in survival. In this pandemic, that we are prioritizing healthcare, housing, jobs, education, and the economy. So my personal take on this as a neurologist is that if the CIRM, California Institute for Regenerative Medicine, hasn't come up with the cures for Alzheimer's and Parkinson's, which is their claim to justify this project, if they haven't done that in 16 years, I'm not sure if there's a chance that they're going to come up with anything in the next 30 years. But if we weren't having a pandemic, I would have no problem recommending this bond initiative. But since the state is having difficulty even making 25% of what Trump's executive order wants us to fulfill to ensure that people are paid $400 a week, we're not even sure if we can meet that copay, as it were. So I don't think that I can bring myself to recommend this bond initiative. However, I should point out that the California Democratic Party has come out in recommending a yes vote for this one. So I would say that we should vote with our conscience. So what is your priority? What does your conscience tell you to do? So are there any questions?
Yeah, I do.
Oh,
Donna?
there you go. Oh, there you are. Go ahead, Donna.
I couldn't find my hand.
Oh,
Anyway, are people voting against it because of financial issues as opposed to moral issues? I mean, is that where that negative vote is coming from?
I think it's a priority issue with the economic uncertainty we're facing with the pandemic and the massive homelessness, housing insecurity and everything else that we're experiencing. I think in the midst of that, I couldn't bring myself to vote yes for this one. I'm a physician researcher, and I really can't bring myself to do this, putting my hat on as, a council candidate or a citizen of the state. I couldn't even do it.
But the question I'm asking, in your case, is that primarily because of our financial woes?
Financial woes plus, if anybody, say the CIRM, the California Institute for Regenerative Medicine, came up with an FDA-approved medicine or treatment in the last 16 years that they've been funded generously by the state, I would say, yeah, let's go ahead and fund that. Let's move ahead with the project. But if they are unable to, if they haven't produced anything in the last 16 years, I'm not hopeful that they can produce much in the near or distant future. So that's my take on it. Jeff?
Yeah, I'd like to take about 30 seconds to speak in favor of this measure. First of all, it's a bond measure, so it will be paid off in the future. It is not taking money away from, the programs that we need now to address the pandemic, homelessness, et cetera. Secondly, CIRM doesn't actually conduct research. It makes grants. It's required to give 92.5% of its funds in grants. Those have gone to the UCs, Stanford, USC, and Children's Hospital. And according to the backers of this measure, during the 15 years that CIRM has been in existence, these grants have created 55,000 full-time equivalent jobs, $3 billion in matching funds, and almost $11 billion in economic activity. So it's, government research spending is an effective stimulus. So I would hope that the club would support this measure. I think this is a very wise, very long-term investment. Thanks for letting me go over.
yeah, I'm going to just interject here that we're planning on putting the ballot propositions on our election buddy ballot in September. So everybody's going to get a chance to vote on this, but not tonight. We're not going to be voting, which is informational stuff tonight. I would like to move on now to keep us on schedule to the video we have from Andrew Lottman about Proposition 18. I know it says on the agenda Sarah Hager will speak, but Sarah couldn't make it. Andrew made a video, and I'm going to play that video and share the screen, I hope.
We can't hear the sound.
Let's try it now.
We can't hear you.
Did you click the button to share the computer sound when you shared screen, Pete?
No, I didn't. There's a separate button
Yeah,
that I have to click to share the sound, is it?
yes, you probably want to just stop your screen share now, and then when
Okay.
you redo screen
Oh,
share,
right.
there's a button right at the
There's a
bottom left.
button right at the bottom that says share computer sound. Optimize share screen for video clip. Share. Let's try it again.
Hi, this is Andrew Lackman, one of your DNC members and a proud member of Culver City Democrat. I'm sorry I can't make the Culver City Democratic Club meeting tonight, but I also chair the Finance Advisory Committee for Culver City, and we're beginning our first hearing with leaders from the LA County Homeless Integration, mental health intervention, and youth diversion programs to discuss how and the future of our police budget as part of the City Council's efforts. I did want to share with you, though, a personal story about Proposition 18 and why I'm supporting it. 18 years ago, I ran to be an Al Gore delegate. And where I grew up in Maryland, if you turn 18 by the date of the general, you can still vote in the primary even if you're still 17. 13 other states do it. California doesn't because of a Supreme Court case from 1898, which basically said that women and 17-year-olds, amongst others, should not be able to vote because that's what the state constitution says. Shows exactly how up to date the California Supreme Court was in 1898 and how behind the times their thinking was. But working with State Senator Kara Lou and then Assemblyman Gene Mullen, and then eventually his son Kevin Mullen, they tirelessly carried this bill. And working with the Rainbow Coalition, working with Acorn, working with League of Conservation Voters, we finally got it passed and got the 2/3 majority. Look, if this bill were a person, it would be old enough to vote. It took 18 years to get this thing through, but it really reflects the importance of getting young people to vote. And in states where this has been the law for decades, more young people vote when they still have a connection to their community, when they're being taught civics in their high school class. And once you start voting early, voting becomes a habit and increases our activity. And that's so important for our community because so many of these policies impact our schools, impact our environment, which affect their future, and even the debt that we carry within the city and the state, and what they do in Congress so much affects their lives. So I hope you'll join me in endorsing Proposition 18. And again, my apologies for not being there tonight.
Okay, thank you, Andrew. Sorry you couldn't be here in person, but thanks for sending the video. And now we're going to move down our list of propositions, and we come to Proposition 19, and Kelly Kent would like to speak on that. And I know Kelly's here.
Hi.
Hi, Kelly. Go ahead.
Yeah, I am going to speak about Proposition 19, and I'm excited to participate in this. I've never done proposition research like this before in an effort to present, so I thank the club for inviting their members to get involved in this way. And I am going to take a position of no on Proposition 19, and I'll try to just sum it up in 2 sentences and then explain it a little bit more in depth. So the Proposition 19 is complicated. It has some things that are positive and some things that are negative in it. The positive in the context of California specifically is that if Prop 19 is passed, you will have to live in your inherited property to benefit from the non-tax reassessment that is a component of Proposition 13. So folks may remember that Proposition 13 essentially freezes your property tax rates from the time that it's purchased, and that can be passed on to children and grandchildren. And currently, children and grandchildren can benefit from the lack of reassessment. So even though the child is not the original purchaser, they don't get the property tax reassessment because they inherited the home, but they can do this even if they don't live in it. So even if they're using it as an income property and they're renting it out, they still pay the very, very low taxes that they benefit from in terms of this inherited wealth that is the unique situation in California as a result of Prop 13. So if Prop 19 passed, once again, the positive aspect of it is that people who benefit from inheriting property would actually have to live in it to benefit from that low tax transfer, not getting the home reassessed. The negative side is that this transfer idea, so what I just described, where you would transfer your home ownership to your child or your grandchildren, and they would also inherit the low taxes that you pay, that transfer idea also occurs between homes for people that are 55 and older or severely disabled. So some of the concerns were that if people 55 and older were downsizing in their homes, that they would have been living on a perhaps fixed income, paying their mortgage, but then also paying a very low tax rate because of Prop 13. Then they would sell that home, downsize, get a smaller home of worth less relatively, but pay a much higher tax rate because the tax rate would be current with the time at which the new home was bought. And so in order to protect people on fixed incomes from suffering from a very high tax rate that was a sticker shock because they were downsizing in their home but paying more property tax relatively, we have this allowance where people can transfer their property tax assessment from house to house. So someone who's 55 and older has a big house, sells it, moves to a smaller house, and can retain their low tax rate. Okay, so they can transfer their low tax rate from house to house. That's currently the case. If Proposition 19 passes, that will be the case not just once, but 3 times. So people can transfer their non-tax reassessment, so their low tax, up to 3 times. They can do it in any county in the entire state, and they can even do it if the house is more expensive, the one that they then buy. So it completely defeats the purpose of what the original intent was, which was to protect that shock of a high tax rate for folks who were on a fixed income. So that's a summary, but I think it'll help if I go into it in a little detail because it's kind of complicated. So Proposition 58, which was passed in 1986, enabled parents to transfer homes to their children without triggering a reset of the tax value. Thus, the tax value remains artificially low and the disparity is magnified over another generation. It's a tax break unique to California. The reassessment exclusion applies even if property is used for rental income. Proposition 19 would eliminate the tax break for inherited homes that aren't used as the owner's primary residences. That makes sense. Had Prop 19 stopped there, it would deserve voter support. Sadly, it doesn't. In 1986, voters also passed Proposition 60, which allowed property owners age 55 and older one chance to purchase a cheaper home in the same county and transfer the tax value of the property they were selling. This most benefits longtime homeowners with low tax values. The concern was that because of the oddities of Prop 13, longtime homeowners seeking to downsize for retirement or when children move out could face higher property taxes when buying a cheaper home. The longer a person had owned their current home and already benefited from inordinately low tax bills due to Prop 13, the greater the tax break on the new property. And those who downsize, I think this is important for this club, those who downsize would often be competing with the first-time buyers for more affordable, smaller homes. So the take-home for me is that I'm advocating vote no on Prop 19. There are fiscal implications. It is backed by realtors, and there are arguments that it would bring in some tax revenues to the state and in particular to firefighters. But the disproportionate impact it would have on folks who are already finding it hard to access affordable homes is noticeable, and the inequities that it would exaggerate in terms of who has access to inherited wealth would only further, marginalize the folks that are already marginalized in the state. Thank you.
Thank you, Kelly. Do we have any questions for Kelly? We got to move on pretty quickly here. Let me see if I see anybody with blue hands raised. Okay, we're going to move on to Proposition 20, Daryl Menthe. Did I pronounce your last name properly, Daryl?
You did.
Oh, okay. Daryl, take it away. Proposition 20.
Thanks. Well, I'm here to speak strongly against Proposition 20. I'm actually the vice chair of the Finance Advisory Committee, and Andrew Buckman's the chair. He has to be there tonight, but I got to step away to do this because this is an issue that's sort of near and dear to my heart, criminal justice reform. Prop 20 is a really complex proposition. I'm not going to try to do what Kelly did so ably with Prop 19, trying to explain all the details of it. I don't think we have time. In many ways, it's just very simple, though. This is a step back into a dark past. It's an effort to undo much of the progress in criminal justice reform that has taken place in California over the last decade. It's even out of step with progress on the federal level for sentencing reform. Frankly, it goes straight back to 40 years of tough on crime and that prison industrial complex. It's a stealth effort to repeal two propositions, 47 and 57. These propositions reclassified certain nonviolent offenses as misdemeanors and expanded parole for nonviolent crimes. Prop 20 not only undoes those, it also expands DNA collection, including mandatory blood samples, like needles, to a whole host of misdemeanor offenses, including first-time misdemeanor drug possession. Frankly, Prop 20, I have nothing good to say about it. It's an effort to reestablish some of the worst aspects of systemic racism in criminal justice that we've been trying to undo and dismantle for many years now. While we're focusing really heavily right now as a city on sort of the right size of our police department, it's important that we not lose sight of how important it is to have criminal justice reform. We know there's heavier policing in areas where people of color live. We know that law enforcement traditionally focuses on property crimes in urban areas. You stick up a corner store in South LA for $50, you get 20 years. Run a bank on Wall Street that defrauds millions of people out of their homes, and well, nothing really happens. That is the reality of our criminal justice system. This makes it worse. When we talk about systemic racism in the justice system, mandatory minimums, and all that, this goes right back to throwing away the lives of young people of color who have done relatively minor property crimes. And that's what it's designed to do. You could just as well call this the Black Lives Don't Matter proposition, frankly. I know it's tough politically because one of the hardest things about criminal justice is realizing that we have to treat the perpetrators as human beings too. And frankly, anger without empathy always leads us in the wrong direction. The duty to value every person is not limited to the innocent or victims of crime. And we won't overcome systemic racism if we don't start taking that seriously. And Prop 20 is frankly a reactionary proposition that I believe we must defeat. By the way, just a comment on what Michelle Weiner said earlier. My answer is pretty simple. Why should parolees and even prisoners have the right to vote? Because they're human beings. I'm all done with that sentence. Thank you.
Thank you, Daryl. I would like to move on if nobody has any questions for Daryl on that issue. We come up to Proposition 21. Now, Rod, the last time we talked about you speaking, you didn't want to speak. Do you still feel that way, or do you want to say something? Sorry, is Rod Wright still here?
No, that's okay.
Okay,
I won't take the time. Let it go.
Okay, thanks, Rod. We'll go on to Freddie Prusa, Proposition 22.
Hi, everyone. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Great. Hi, everyone. Freddie Prusa. I'm here to speak about Proposition 22. It's also known as the Protect App-Based Drivers and Services Act. It's a ballot initiative funded by Uber, Lyft, DoorDash, Instacart, and Postmates. There is $110 million behind supporting Prop 22 and about $900,000 supporting the opposition. I'm speaking tonight in opposition to Prop 22. Opposition means California Assembly Bill 5, which was passed in 2019, could be used to decide whether app-based drivers are employees or independent contractors. So in order to do this, they have to use a three-pronged test to prove workers are independent contractors, not employees. So that test is one, the worker is free from the hiring company's control and direction in the performance of work. Two, the worker is doing work that is outside the company's usual course of business. And three, the worker is engaged in an established trade, occupation, or business of the same nature as the work performed. So this would be another attempt by large corporations to avoid playing by the rules as other law-abiding companies under the guise of supposedly being a benefit to workers. So a yes vote, as defined by the people supporting this, means they define app-based transportation, including rideshare and delivery drivers, as independent contractors, and adopt labor and wage policies specific to app-based drivers and companies. So it sounds a little confusing, and the devil is always in the details. I believe that Prop 22 will create a permanent underclass of workers. And the reason, or how this is going to play out, is companies will avoid ever paying for overtime, critical work expenses, such as full mileage expenses or cell phones, or even the state's minimum wage. Companies will not have to pay overtime, and most likely, so if Prop 22 passes, companies will not have to pay overtime, and most likely will implement a sub-minimum wage. And so these emissions cost drivers as much as $500 per week in lost wages and reimbursements. It would prevent workers from accessing a single day of paid sick or family leave, unemployment benefits, which many need during this pandemic. So if they were classified as employees, so that's a vote no, they would currently receive 8 weeks of paid leave and 3 days of sick leave due to COVID, versus none if the proposition was passed. It would deny workers long-term medical or income protections if they are disabled on the job. There are no benefits if they're involved. If this passes, there will be no benefits if they're involved in no-fault job loss, and there would be limited health coverage for work-related injuries. If this passes, it will also discriminate on the basis of immigration status. It's a crucial element given that 56% of app-based transportation and delivery workers are immigrants. So if it passes, there would be no explicit protections against discrimination based on immigration status. Another concerning thing is that a recent study by UC Berkeley found that Uber and Lyft have avoided paying $413 million in unemployment insurance by misclassifying their employees as independent contractors. So the way they do this is they refuse to report wage data and pay into the state's unemployment insurance fund. So as a result, the workers who have faced decreased business during the pandemic are currently being denied state unemployment benefits. So this misclassification prompted a lawsuit, and the judge did grant a preliminary injunction requiring both companies, Uber and Lyft, to classify the workers as employees under the court ruling. So at least temporarily, they have some protections. It is opposed by our current presidential nominee, Joe Biden, his VP pick, Kamala Harris, and Elizabeth Warren. It's also opposed by the California Teachers Association, the AFL-CIO, the SEIU, Unite Here. And in conclusion, Prop 22 is a race to the bottom that preys on the desperation of people with little choice but to accept insecure, low-paying, unsafe work.
Thanks. Thanks, Freddie. If we don't have any questions for Freddie, I'm sort of hoping we don't at the moment because we want to stay on schedule. I'd like to move on to Yasmin, Proposition 23, speaking against, I believe. Yasmin?
Hi, everyone. Is there anyone that's for? Should I share both sides?
There's no buddy who's for, and that's your choice. If you want to talk about both sides, go ahead.
Yeah, happy to. Well, happy Wednesday, everybody. I hope you're doing well and taking good care of yourselves. I'm going to share a little bit about Prop 23. This wasn't my first choice, but my sister, my late sister, was on dialysis before she passed. So it is something that is near and dear to my heart. And so we have a personal relationship with it. So Prop 23 is trying to set up sort of additional regulations and requirements on dialysis centers throughout California. They'd like to have a physician on site. They want to ensure that there's a report for related infections. There has to be consent from the state to close any clinics. And there's also a provision to not discriminate against patients based on source of payment or care. Which I think that the last three I'm generally in favor of. I don't think folks would be against those last three, but the red flag for me was requiring an on-site physician. So when my sister was going through dialysis, there's staff there. There are physicians that are a part of the staff, but I'm concerned about the expense that would be required to ensure that for every single clinic, there's someone from, the time open to the time closed. And when you look at who is participating or who is receiving dialysis treatments, tends to be folks of color. They're often in marginalized neighborhoods typically. So I'm really concerned about that. And that's why I wanted to talk about it. So just so we have a little overview, there's about $6 million in support of this measure. There's about $2 million opposed. The NAACP is against it, as well as the California Medical Association, as well as the American Nurses Association of California. SEIU West is sponsoring this and is for it. So dialysis is for when you have end-stage kidney failure and you're at about like 90% of kidney function and your kidneys remove waste, salt, extra water in your body to prevent it from building up, which is not good. We don't want that. It maintains safe levels of chemicals in our blood and it controls our blood pressure. So folks who need dialysis will typically need it for about 5 to 10 years. They sometimes can be on it for longer. My sister was on it for about 5-ish years before she passed. So there are about 70,000 Californians who are currently utilizing dialysis sources. So currently, the clinics are strictly regulated. They do have physicians on staff. I thought that was, something to bring into this space. One of the arguments against it is that it's going to pull doctors into sort of non-caregiving roles and focus them into clinics instead of hospitals, which might create a sort of doctor shortage if this was to go into place, sort of an unintended consequence from the California Medical Association. And the NAACP, again, just reiterated that it disproportionately is going to hurt minority patients and low-income and disadvantaged communities with the expense. So that's sort of a top view. I do have some other stuff I can pull on if folks have questions, but generally, I hope that there's a happy medium way that they can maybe add another ballot measure or another bill that could do some of these things, but I'm very concerned about the added cost this is going to put on folks who absolutely need this. You can't not get dialysis, and if you don't get it, you will, it will not be good. Folks who need dialysis absolutely need it to keep maintaining their quality of life. So does anyone have any questions for me?
Now, Gina Harris has her hand up. I think she wanted to either add something or go ahead, Gina.
Yes. Hey, Yasmin. So I just wanted to add, because, you know, I am a former dialysis nurse, and I know that I was just really busy when I was asked to speak on things, and I just couldn't take on anything else. But what I wanted to say is, having the dialysis background in nursing, is that the physicians, the nephrologists, are the ones writing orders. The clinics are set up, you have charge nurse, you have RNs, you have LVNs, you have care techs. They are very limited in what they can do, what the services that they can provide in the case of an emergency, regardless of whether there's a doctor on board or not. Most of the time, if they have an emergency, they have to call 911 in the clinic for real emergency services. They just don't have access to medications and things like that it would take to run a full code if a patient were to have an unfortunate event while dialyzing in a clinic, just like a doctor's office. A regular doctor's office isn't equipped to run a code either. So staffing the nephrologist does take away. The nephrologists go to multiple clinics, and they also see patients in the hospital. It's not uncommon for me to see a nephrologist in the hospital where I was an acute dialysis nurse, and they would tell me I got to run to clinic because they see people in clinic too. So it would put some strain on the specialty per se. Maybe not a physician shortage, but that particular specialty of nephrology, it will put a strain. I'm not going to say either for, but I will say this is an age-old battle between SEIU and DaVita, Fresenius, the big dialysis companies. That's what Prop 8 was. It's not really, personally, I don't feel like it's truly about the care of the patient. It's more so about SEIU wanting to unionize and DaVita and Fresenius, of course, saying hell no. I tried to speak union to the dialysis nurses when I worked, and honestly, they weren't even interested. But DaVita and Fresenius are union busters. It's just that I feel like these propositions are getting caught up in the battle of this. I want them union. It's one of those subliminally that's getting caught up. So that's just my 2 cents. I'm not going to say yes or no. I'm going to let you guys make that decision. I just want to put my 2 cents on that.
Thank you.
Anything else on that subject? Either questions or comments? Or
There's a
if
question
not,
in the chat, I think.
oh, there's a question in the chat?
And Pete, I need to speak to you
after the meeting?
after this question, because I want to ask about Prop 21, why it's not being covered at all.
Oh, sure. I'm not finding the question. Whoever put the question in the chat, you want to just ask the question? Okay.
The question was, I'm wondering what incidents have led to this proposition, from Reva Goldman.
And it sounds like you answered it, that it has nothing to do with, there's no medical rationale for this. It's more of a labor issue.
Yeah, can I answer that? It is a labor issue. Now, some of the smaller dialysis clinics that aren't under DaVita is Joint Commission certified. And granted, I am not praising that fucking company, okay? I'm sorry for my language, but I'm not praising them. They've had me work some serious hours, but I will tell you they are Joint Commission certified, and that is a certification that comes through hospitals, and they have to go through state and health departments. So they do have to meet regulations, and so does the Fresenius. Now, the very, very teeny tiny dialysis clinics that you barely even know of, they might do some shady stuff. Very rarely, but they are regulated by state. So I do think that this goes back to a labor dispute, which I'm very pro-labor. I'm very pro, if people want to unionize, they have absolutely every right to unionize. I just don't like people getting caught up in the crossfire,
Okay, I'd like to offer Kimberly, if you want to speak against Proposition 21, once we're done with the...
Yeah,
the
I was just
reason
kind of keen.
our speaker decided he didn't want to speak against it, so we don't have anybody else. But if somebody wants to step up and...
Well, I wouldn't be prepared. I was keen to find out the reasoning for Prop 21 because I have my issues with the whole rent control thing. So I wanted to hear somebody's view on it.
Can I say something, Pete?
Sure.
So in the chat, Kimberly, I posted a video, the link to our video, all queued up to the discussion of Prop 21 that the Democratic Club had. I believe it was in June.
Okay, so the
Sorry.
What happened? I was waiting to hear that. That sounded interesting.
I don't know who was talking. I'm sorry.
This is Leah,
That was
and
Lydia.
I put a link in the chat to our Democratic Club meeting where Susie Shannon and Alfred Chwu gave a very detailed explanation of Proposition 21.
Oh, yeah, yeah. Unfortunately, I'm on the phone, so I can't see any of that.
So you could go to YouTube, and the Democratic Club has a channel, and there are only 3 or 4 videos, and one of them is that meeting, and there's a very lengthy discussion of Proposition 21.
Okay, I'll go there. I have probably a very different opinion, but that's okay. Thank you, guys. I appreciate it. I'll mute myself.
Okay. Let me see if we can, I'm going to have to, because I didn't get Andrew Lockman's video for Proposition 24, I'm going to have to refer people to the newsletter where Andrew wrote a piece about Proposition 24. He wrote in favor of it. It's about privacy online. That's the main issue that Proposition 24 discusses. So on our website and in our newsletter that came out August 1st, you can find Andrew Lockman's article. He's a lawyer who specializes in privacy issues. So he wrote a piece about saying he is in favor of Proposition 24. The California Democratic Party, as I recall, took a neutral position on Proposition 24, not for or against. Now, are we ready to talk about Proposition 25, which is, I'm blanking out. Cynthia, what's that about again?
Bail.
Bail, money bail. Yeah, Cynthia Hart's going to talk about Proposition 25, money bail.
Can I just say one thing about 24? I got real interest in 24 when I found out that this multimillionaire with a B in his bonnet about this issue is the same guy who developed DuckDuckGo, which is like a rival to Google, only they don't track you and they protect privacy. And that gives the thing a little bit of a jolt of credibility with me. And Andrew Lackman's piece is very good, and he gives the reasons why he gives it somewhat of a positive review. Okay, so that's 24. That's what I know. Prop 25. Oh, and I need to time myself because I could talk about this for a really long time, but we don't. But we'd rather I didn't. Huh? Okay. Most important thing to know about Prop 25 is a yes vote on Prop 25 ends cash bail in California because it will finally allow SB 10 to become law. The catalog of horrors of cash bail are well known. The cash bail turns the presumption of innocence upside down, wrong side out, and backwards. People without resources to post bail will do the time whether or not they did the crime. People who don't have those kind of resources lose jobs, homes, custody of children, and now that we've got a global pandemic, they risk any amount of time in jail could become a death sentence, couldn't it? But just to make matters worse, people who don't have access to cash bail are pressured to plead guilty just so they can get out. And then that plea will follow them for the rest of their lives. We're talking about ruined lives because of lack of resources. It's like criminalizing poverty. Just to put matters in perspective, the Stanford rapist was arrested and got out the same day. He had resources. A yes vote on Prop 25 will allow SB 10 to finally take effect. Cash bail was so monstrously unfair that the California legislature was finally persuaded to do something about it. They come out with SB 10, and immediately the Bail Association was right there with a ballot initiative with the required number of signatures. They went to the courthouse, and the court said, "Hey, looks like you might prevail, and you'd be irreparably harmed if we let this law go through. So we'll put it on hold." So it's been on hold. A no vote retains the status quo. This is one of those backwards times. It's a veto, what they call a veto resolution. So a yes vote means yes, really you're voting yes on SB 10 to replace money bail with a risk assessment plan. Endorsers include the California Democratic Party, State Senator Holly Mitchell, Representative Karen Bass, Assemblymember Sidney Kamlager, Representative Ted Lieu, Kevin De Leon, and me. Questions?
Do we have questions on Proposition 25 or comments? Anyone? I'm not seeing any little blue hands, so we do have. Oh.
Quick comment, Pete.
Yeah, Daniel.
I think Prop 25 would go very far towards ending the criminalization of poverty itself. A lot of people across the country end up in jail or prison and stay there for extended periods of time simply because they can't afford to pay bail. And, you know, a lot of them have children. A lot of them have jobs which they lose as a result. And it just starts this sort of, you know, whirlwind that keeps people down instead of really trying to address the needs that got them there. So yes on 25.
Yeah. Yes will let the law, the underlying law, SB 10, go into effect. A no vote will keep the status quo, keep cash bail just the way it's been for many years. So that's the tricky part with this one. Even though the bail industry put this on the ballot, a yes vote is to put them out of business in California, in effect. So that's something to keep in mind if you have a strong feeling one way or the other about this and you're going to vote on it. Now we get on to a local proposition which doesn't have a number yet or a letter. Culver City property transfer tax, and our spokesperson on that is Alex Fish. Alex.
Hello, Democrats.
Hi, Alex. Thank you.
Good to see you all. I'm here to strongly urge you to vote yes on this. It's what it is it's essentially a sales tax for real property. We already pay it. We pay a flat tax at the time of sale, and only the time of sale when you're sort of cashing out of 0.045%. So for every $1,000, it's oh, I should pull this up so it's handy. You know, it's a very small amount. If you were to sell your house today for $1.5 million, you would pay $6,750 of real estate transfer tax. This introduces a progressive marginal rate structure to the real estate transfer tax system, just like your income tax. So now there'd be a new bracket from 1.5 to $3 million for those dollars of 1.5%. For $3 million to $10 million, those dollars would be taxed at 3%, and for sales over $10 million, that amount, the tax rate on the amounts over 10 million would be 4%. So what this tax measure does is if you sell your home for $1.5 million, you're exempt from this measure. So you would still pay the exact same $6,750 in tax, just like you do today. If you were to mansionize, or more likely in Culver City, if somebody, if a flipper came in and bought a teardown house for $1.5 million, they would pay the $6,750 that they would pay today, because that everything under 1.5 million is exempt from the tax increase. But on the second sale, they would then pay $22,500 because they're paying at 1.5% for the 1.5 million difference between 3 million and the sort of base. So the difference for that $3 million house is it's an additional $15,750 that would not have been paid. Now, if you start getting into the really big stuff where people can definitely afford to pay, you start to see more significant increases. And just to cut to the chase, yesterday, a sale in Culver City closed of the Symantec building in Fox Hills at Corporate Point for $120 million, I believe. Under our existing, unquestionably, the private equity firm or commercial real estate entity that bought that, or that sold it probably, and had been paying substantially reduced Prop 13 property taxes for years and years and years and years, probably an effective rate far less than most of the people on this call. They would have paid $495, well, they did. They're going to pay $495,000 under our existing real estate transfer tax. If this measure passes, the city would receive $4.4 million of real estate transfer tax. So that's a big difference. And so what this does is it captures those big sales that can afford to pay it while maintaining the sort of regular sales that currently provide about $4 million, $2 to $4 million of the city's budget. If this passes, we expect that even without those big sales of $120 million properties, we can expect to see about $6 million additional in city revenue every year. And as you probably know, the amount that we cut from the general fund because of the coronavirus recession, and it seems unfortunately like we may be on the way to coronavirus or really Trump recession or depression, was a huge percentage of the budget. I think about 17.5%. Let me see, because it's in our ballot argument. We cut 17.5% from the general fund budget. Just, picture that. What that meant was that we put off every bit of deferred maintenance that we were trying to catch up on. It means that there's no prospect without some changes, serious changes, of paying our pension obligations over the next 10 to 15 years. This tax is a solid step in the direction of being able to meet those challenges. And unlike a property tax that's every year, it's always going to be payable because it's only due when someone has proceeds from sale. And with that, I would be happy to take questions and urge you to endorse this measure.
Okay, any questions?
I don't have a question, but I have a comment.
Sure.
Okay. I was at the council meeting where this was proposed, and I did speak up then, and there was a lot of arguments to and fro. The concept itself is beautiful. The problem I had is the percentage you go for in the upper levels. I think you're going way too high with 4%, 3%. I think it should be a hell of a lot less, because even Santa Monica doesn't even charge that much. I think you're overdoing it. I think it's unfair to those people. And you also have to realize that most property in Culver City now is getting to about the value of 1.5, I'm afraid, sad to say. And we're all going to lose that extra money when we go to sell. I don't think it's a good idea. I think you should change those rates and make it more reasonable for those in the higher brackets, so they'll still, end up paying more, but not quite 4%. I think it's too much.
A quick response. One is that, remember, these are marginal rates. So you really have to get well into the bracket before it affects your tax bill. If you were $1 over than that, if you sold for 1.5 million and $1, you're still paying 0.45% for $1.5 million. Nothing has changed. It's that last dollar that's taxed, just like your income taxes. The second point is that these brackets are indexed to inflation, so the idea of creep is reduced by that.
Okay. Thank you for that. That was a question I didn't actually ask, but I wanted to know that. So for each tax bracket you've come up with, then you move into the next for the rest of the value. But I still think you've gone way too high on the amounts. Otherwise, the concept's great.
Okay, so we have, I have a question for Freddie Prusa. Now, I've got you on this part of the agenda for talking about AB 3216. Now, is that something you, Freddie, that you need to talk about at this meeting, or is that something we could do in September? We did print the article you wrote in the newsletter talking about the bill, and I have prepared a, what do they call those, poll that we could do on whether or not to support it. Would you like to talk about that briefly now?
You know, I know it is an assembly bill, not a proposition on the ballot. So I'm fine with waiting until September. It was in the newsletter. And then I'm also, you know, the reason this came about was I was talking to my friends at Lane and then also Unite Here. So I'm happy to invite them at a September meeting.
Okay, well, yeah, that sounds like a good idea. Then we could give it more time than just 2 minutes. And keep in mind, people who are at the meeting here listening, that you can look Freddie's article up in the August 1st newsletter, or look at our website and see it there, because we've been posting all the articles since our website, thanks to Kareem, is back up and running. And he showed me how to post these things and even graphics with them.
Pete, can I just add really quick?
Yeah.
So I introduced a local version that was very similar to 3216, and I believe it was June, working with Unite Here. Unfortunately, we did not get a majority on the council, but since then I've stayed in contact with Unite Here and had meetings with Senator Mitchell about 3216 as well. And I think she supports, so just more information.
Well, I think it's important. It's about family leave, expanding family leave. And it's a time when a lot of people need it really desperately. With the schools closed, with people out of work, with people being laid off and whatnot, people being sick. It's a very important bill. And I urge people to read it either on the website or in the most recent newsletter, the August 1st newsletter. With that, I'd like to thank everyone who spoke during this portion of our meeting in favor or against or on both sides of an issue. It's been very informative to me, and I'm sure a lot of people have learned stuff from it. And I'm sure the people that spoke probably learned stuff when they were researching it, because some of these things are very complicated, and you're not able to really figure out what the hell's going on with these things sometimes. And that's sometimes the way it's designed. So I'm glad we did this. And we'll have more in the next newsletter. If I hear from people who want to put stuff in the next newsletter about the propositions, if it's breaking new ground, we can do that. We didn't get as many long pieces in this month's newsletter as I was hoping we would get. So if people want to add to those things, let me know. And let's see. With that, thanks again, everybody, and we'll start the business meeting.
And Pete?
Yeah.
Can you thank that lovely gentleman, Mr. Tu, for those great illustrations too? Those were
Yeah, Alfred Wu, who was one of our speakers when we talked about Proposition 21, he lives up in Berkeley, and he does these wonderful drawings. You should find him on the internet. He's got a website that just has some amazing drawings that he's made of cities. He lives in Berkeley, and he's an activist and city council candidate, I believe, at one point up there. He's a real interesting guy. And he's put together an organization of his own in favor of Proposition 18, letting 17-year-olds who are going to be 18 on the day of the general election vote in the primary. He's promoting that, and he's a good guy. So, and he's a great artist, I think.
Can I point something out?
Cynthia has something to say on that.
Just okay. So Alfred's video in support of Prop 18 is on our Facebook group page. So please check it out. It's nice.
I think I put it on the website too, even though we haven't endorsed Proposition 18 yet. I haven't heard anybody speak against the idea of letting 17-year-olds vote. under those circumstances. So let's move on to approval of the agenda. Is there anyone who would like to move approval of the agenda? Feel free to raise your little blue hand there. Is there anybody who's against approving the agenda? All right, so we'll call that approved. And the minutes of our last meeting, I sent that out with the link. Hope everybody had a chance to read it. Oh, Disa, you have your hand up. Is that to Disa Lindgren? Did you want
I'm
to say
just approving. I'm just approving.
Oh,
You
you're
asked for a
approving
blue
of it.
hand.
Okay. All right, good. Well, we've approved the agenda, and as far as I can see, there's no objections to approving the minutes. If there is, go ahead and unmute yourself and speak up, or raise your digital hand there. I don't see any hands raised. Oh, Deesa's hand is still
I'm
up.
approving the minutes as well.
Approving the minutes. Very good. All right. I think we're done with the minutes in the agenda. So I'd like to, if Diane is still here, the membership secretary's report. Is Diane Rosenberg here?
I don't think she's here. Let me get her.
Okay. In the meantime, we could have Eric Fine give the financial report if he's here. Is Eric here?
I'll do it. Let me start my video.
There he is.
There I am. All right. We started the month of July with 9,353. We had no expenditures. We took in, now I'm going to make a change. I put it out for all dues. Now it's $1,297.99 in dues. And we got the deposit, the security deposit back from the Veterans Auditorium. That's $300. So that's money that we're going to have to put back to give back to the veterans once we start the meetings there again. So we took in the total deposits of $1,597.99 for a grand total of $10,951.21. Any questions? All right. Hey, thanks. You've been great.
Hey, I got Diane here.
Hello? It's 178. And that is including the 17 lifetime members.
I'm muted. Thank you, Diane. I've been talking as if I wasn't muted. All right, we have 178 members, including all our lifetime members. Now, on the agenda, it says President's Report voting procedures. I just wanted to say that we're going to start our election buddy ballot at 9 p.m. on the evening of September 9th, which is our next general meeting. Second Wednesday in September is the 9th. And so at the end of the meeting, we'll start our election buddy meeting, voting ballot at 9 o'clock, and we'll give 24 hours for people to vote. And then at 9 p.m. On the 10th of September, we'll get results on the first ballot. These are the voting for endorsements for propositions, city council, president, school board, local measures such as the one that Alex Fish was discussing. We also have a local rent control measure that was put on by Ron Basilian against rent control, taking the right of the city council away from the city council to institute rent control retroactively, and requiring a referendum vote of the Culver City voters to approve a rent control measure of any kind. So that's going to be on the November 3rd ballot as well, and we'll be voting on it in September along with everything else that is not endorsed yet. Like we've endorsed Karen Bass, we've endorsed George Gascon, we've endorsed Holly Mitchell, and Prop 15, Schools and Communities First, we endorsed. We still haven't endorsed our Assembly member, Sidney Kamlager, and we still haven't endorsed City Council or School Board. So we'll be by the way, we'll be having a school board thing on the 22nd, which is a Saturday, 22nd of August, that is going to be similar, a forum for the candidates for the school board, which is similar to the forum that we had on July 4th for the city council candidates that we knew about at that time. Since then, there's been a couple new people who are, one of them at least is a Democrat. I think the other might be a Democrat also, a newly signed up Democrat, who are running for city council. So we'll be voting on city council on the evening of, starting for 24-hour period, starting at 9 p.m. on the 9th of September on Election Buddy. Well, that's why we had our practice vote on Election Buddy about a couple of weeks ago, so we could find out if it works. Yes, is that Donna?
Yeah, it was me. Do you have any idea what the what time on the 22nd the
yeah, I know it's going to be later in the day than that we had on the 4th of July one, because we started that one at 11 and we were done by 1:30. We have one of the school board candidates who can be there at 3:30 because that person works that day. So we're going to have it later in the day, but it will wrap up no earlier than 4 o'clock. And I haven't scoped out the times for it yet. We haven't really got everybody who has been invited to respond yet. So we'll see. At some point, I'm going to just have to cut it off and say, okay, these are the people who responded, so they're going to be the Democrats who are in the forum. We're not going to have anybody but Democrats at the forum, and there's going to be a lot of them. I think it's going to be 5 or 6 people running for school board this time around, and there's 2 seats open. So that'll happen on Saturday the 22nd, and then after that, we do have something on the agenda later down where we talk about something to happen on Labor Day, but I think that was just a suggestion that didn't really pan out. I personally don't feel like I have the bandwidth to organize a meeting on Labor Day. We've got a lot going on, and we're going to be doing the newsletter from now until 1st of September. So now Cynthia's got the announcements that we know of up on the screen there. So you can see our club is, our website is back in service, and there's a Twitter account, Twitter address. We can put this, I believe we can put this into the file.
I put it in the chat.
Oh, it's you uploaded it where it said file? Okay, so if you want to find that in the chat and put it onto your computer, that's one way to transfer this. And we can also put these announcements on the website now. And I'll do that as soon as I can. So as you see, they're scrolling by. Tomorrow night is very important meeting of the City Council on the Inglewood oil field. Is that on the announcements thing? Yes. So people might want to look into whether they want to go to that meeting of the City Council tomorrow night, starting at 6 p.m. To discuss. You got to register for it. At 6 p.m. So very important issue that the City Council will be discussing, and people who are interested should attend if they can.
Pete, may I just say something, please?
Yes, yes.
Sorry, I had my hand up, but you probably didn't notice it.
Yeah, it's hard.
Yeah, I'm sure. For those who are not aware of it, at this past Monday night's council meeting, Thomas Small announced that he will not be running again.
That's right. Thomas Small is not running, so they're in a 2 city council seats without incumbents running. There are 3 city council seats.
maybe.
Everyone's annoying.
Oh,
There are 3 city council seats that are going to be elected. Somebody's going to be elected to them. So the current mayor, Jorn Eriksson, is running for re-election, and he has to run for one of those seats. And we have a number of club members, as you know, who are running for city council. So we got, I think, maybe even more Democrats running for the 2 school board seats than we have running for the 3 city council seats. I haven't really sorted that out yet. I've got a couple more that I have to invite to our forum on the school board, which will be August 22nd, Saturday afternoon. Hopefully not too late on Saturday. Yeah, we do have an election coming up for the club. First Vice President, John Williams, had to step down because of illness in his family. He wasn't able to participate for the last several weeks. And I'd like to open nominations now for First Vice President of the club.
Are we done with announcements? I had a quick one.
Oh, I'm sorry. Yeah, Daniel, would you like to make your announcement? Go ahead.
Yeah, I wish it were more concrete, but Christina Burton, who I believe has been a member in the past, but I'm not sure if she's current right now, is going to do a reading of her play, The Dreamers, followed by a panel discussion with a number of freedom riders and hopefully some representatives from the students who've been organizing locally. That's supposed to be on Sunday, August 29th. I think August 28th is the, I want to say 55th, but I'm probably wrong on the number, anniversary of the March on Washington. And BYP 100 actually has an event on the 28th as well. But I will share more details as I get them.
Yeah, send me those and I can put them on the website.
Will do.
Those details. People should start checking out the website now. I'm going to put as many things on there as I can. From I did get everything from the newsletter onto the website, which is quite a bit of stuff. So go check it out. And if you have stuff that you would like to add to the website, just send me an email or give me a call. Next one with a little hand raised there is Gina Harris.
Hello. So 2 things, actually. I thought announcements it was going to be reversed, but quick announcement. I'm moderating a single payer healthcare panel on Saturday. I'll put the link in the chat, the Zoom link. It's going to be focused around the communities of color and how single payer healthcare would, greatly benefit us. It's kind of like the pre-DNC, kicking off the DNC conversations, even though we couldn't get single payer in the platform, but don't get me started. Nonetheless, I'm moderating a panel, and we actually have Patrice Cullors from Black Lives Matter joining this panel, so I'm really excited to have that. And Akili, Dr. Paul Song, just a lot of great advocates. So I'm going to drop the Zoom link in the chat here in a second. Secondly, so if we're taking nominations from the floor for First Vice President, I would like to nominate Jeff Schwartz, who is a member of our club, who is also one of the assembly delegates from our district, and who has been putting a lot of work in for the club, kind of behind the scenes. And I think he would be a great addition into the board. And I just would like to nominate him, and you better accept it because I ain't taking
it. Excuse me for 1 minute.
Yeah, Rebecca?
Is this nomination of Jeff, is this considered part of announcements?
No, it's actually on the agenda under business meeting. It's
The
the
reason-
last
the re-
item before announcements. So
Yeah, we
we'll
kind of
get
went
to,
back
we'll
and
get
forth
to,
around the
I'm
agenda.
afraid I am at fault for that.
Okay, well, okay. In a moment, I would like to make an announcement, but first I certainly would like to second the motion in favor of Jeff Schwartz.
All right. So we have a nominee for first vice president. Now, Tom, were you going to second that nomination?
Yes, after my hand
So
was up.
We have two
I
seconds.
seconded it in the chat because
Disa also seconded. So
there's
we
a
have
lot
quite a
of
few seconds.
enthusiasm for this candidate. I'd just like
I
to
think
point
so.
that out.
I think so. In fact, I'd like to ask 2 more times for nominations at this point, since we've got quite a few seconds. Is there, can everybody put down their little blue hand if they're not going to nominate somebody? Because I need to, you can raise it again for announcements. Let's do announcements after we elect somebody to first vice president. So, okay. If you want to nominate someone else besides Jeff Schwartz, please raise your digital hand there so that I can see it. And I don't see one. And I'm going to ask a 3rd time for nominations for first vice president. Are there any nominations for first vice president in addition to Jeff Schwartz? Hearing none, I'm going to declare that the nominations are closed. And I would like to ask if there is any objection to declaring Jeff Schwartz elected to the position of first vice president. Would you raise your hand if you have an objection to that action? And I'm not seeing any hands raised. So I'm going to declare that the club has unanimously elected Jeff Schwartz first vice president.
And Jeff accepted, right? Like I
Yes.
haven't heard Jeff.
Yes,
I'm just making
He's
sure.
not saying anything.
I'm gonna ask him to unmute and make it official there. Jeff,
I'm
would
just
you like
making sure.
he may have gone to sleep. Let's see if he's awake here. There he is.
I didn't want to listen to y'all talking about me, but thank you very much.
Thank you
Well, you're doing it.
Thank you for accepting
Okay.
the honor and the job, and I look forward to working with you, Jeff, as we have been working so far. It's been great. Jeff's been doing a lot of great stuff in the newsletter. I'm sure you've noticed, and just generally a good guy. So that's nice. Let's move on to more announcements. I have a few that I have just on the agenda. They're very quickly that don't forget to renew your membership if you need to, or if you need to join the club, you need to do it if you want to vote on the 9th of September. You've got to join by August 14th if you're brand new. If you remember last year, you could theoretically join the night of the vote, which is the 9th of September, but I don't think that's possible now because we're not having in-person meetings, so you can't walk up to where Diane sits at the membership table and hand her money and join. You should just go ahead and either send Diane a check, or better still, go on ActBlue, or not better still, but one equally good way to join is go on ActBlue and join with a credit card. That's the way most people are doing it these days. It's easy to keep track of. They do take a small fee, but we can handle that. We've got a lot of members, 178 now, and we hope to get a few more before the end of the year. So just a reminder, join the club if you're planning on it. Now's the time, whether you were a member last year or whether you're brand new. Then I've already announced the virtual school board candidates thing on August 22nd. And if you are a member, you will get a link to that Zoom meeting. And that's my announcement. So now I'd like to call on Rebecca Rona for an announcement.
Thank you. Thank you, Pete. Many of you know that the city's brand new Equity and Human Relations Advisory Committee has begun its work. We had our first meeting last month. We are going to have our second meeting the last Tuesday of August, which is the 25th at 7 p.m. And I'm urging as many people as possible to attend that meeting virtually, of course. You can go onto the city website and access that meeting. One of the things that we're doing, because we're brand new, is beginning to create what's called our work plan, making decisions about what we will be doing, how, what our, not so much what our goals are, but what our direction will be, what projects we will begin working on. We will have an important training about systemic racism and bias that evening, the 25th, but also, and a report from our ad hoc outreach committee. But importantly, there will be an opportunity, just as we have at city council meetings and other meetings, there will be an opportunity to speak on items not on the agenda at the beginning of the meeting, and also, of course, comment on agenda items. But we're very interested in what people have to say about the direction in which they would, and therefore you would like this committee to go. So I highly recommend that you do take part in the meeting August 25th. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Rebecca. I'm looking for anybody else who wants to make an announcement. I know that this is a very popular moment in our meeting because people do appreciate the opportunity to communicate with other active Democrats. And this is a good opportunity for people to let others in the club know what's going on. So if you got anything that you haven't already put in the chat or would like to announce in addition to that, I see that Gina has her hand up. So I'm going to call in Gina.
I'm just going to state the obvious because no one else did. Next week is DNC. Yay. And of course it's virtual, so we'll be, everything is going to be broadcasted. I will try to find the link. I mean, it's going to be broadcasted on primetime TV, I think starting at 4 our time, I think 6 Central, I believe that's the correct timing. But one of the things I'm going to put the link in the chat for too, is that I believe they're still taking stories, dim stories. So people, they want to broadcast Democrats from around the country, not just delegates. I've already been featured in one of the videos. And so I wanted to share that link so you can share, maybe do a quick little 2-minute video on your phone, different topics. Why am I voting for Joe? Why am I a Democrat? Whatever. But they are compiling them and they will be running these videos during the prime DNC time. So I'll drop that link in the chat. I just thought it'd be fun if you want to get your face out there and have it seen nationally. They are trying to, Democrats across the country or whatever they're using. So I'll put that link in the chat.
Great. I was just thinking, I think I should put this whole chat on the website because it's got a lot of good stuff in it, links to different things. And that might be the best way to get it out to people and also get people to go check out the website. So there are different headings, different categories that I can assign to these things. And under the chat, I'll certainly have it in the category political. And there might be another, I think I'll put it in President's Message as well. So if you're looking for it and can't find it, try President's Message or political. And if I can find another category that looks like it's just right for the chat, I'll put it there. I can't remember right off the top of my head what all the categories are, but now I see another hand, Leah Pressman. Call on you.
Oh, just a quick comment. Because there's a lot of just kind of chatter in the chat, maybe you could just take the useful links and put them on the website rather than like, Jeff, unmute yourself.
No, you're right. I'll edit it down to just the good stuff, the stuff that people will have the need to find. And if you look in the chat also, you'll find the announcements page that Cynthia put up earlier that you can download to your computer if you have a computer. if you're visiting us on a computer. And if you can't find this, if you want the whole chat, I can email it to you. There's a couple of things you can download that people have uploaded to the chat. One of them being the announcement page. There's a lot of stuff in the chat. Okay, so I'll edit it down and put it on the website. Anybody else have any announcements?
Move to adjourn.
Okay, we have a motion to adjourn. I would like to ask that the club, without any objection, I'd like to ask that the club adjourn in the memory of the late Congressman John Lewis.
Absolutely.
Yeah, fine.
So if you don't mind, folks, I think we'll just have a few seconds of silence and we can give some thought to John Lewis and his life. Thank you, everybody. The meeting is adjourned.
Bye, everybody.
Everyone.
Bye.
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 Hey, thank you.
Goodbye.
22nd.
See you guys at the Democratic Convention.
Bye, everybody.
We're going to hear from our delegates to the Democratic Convention at our next meeting.
Okay.
Oh, good. Exciting.
We have a Biden delegate and a Bernie delegate, and we have Andrew Lockman, who's what is he, executive board member?
DNC.
He's DNC. He's on the committee itself.
Bye-bye.
Bye, Caroline.
Bye, everybody. Thank you for coming.
Thanks for coming. Thanks for everything.
And those who spoke, thank you for speaking on the propositions. Hi,
Yeah,
Corinne.
that was great. Thank you.
Yeah,
Thanks
I'm
for-
really glad we did this with the propositions.
Hey, thanks for our beautiful website. And I was able to get on Twitter using the website as a portal because you put the share on there. For the first time, I was able to tweet as the club.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Do you have any question regarding the website? Anything you want me to do to help?
If I could figure out how to get onto Instagram, then I'd really have some. Then I'd have
Okay.
the trifecta. But
Coming up. Well, thank you so much.
I
Congratulations to Jeff.
Yes, thank you, Jeff, for being willing to take that on. It's great to have you as a first vice president. And with that, I think I'm going to end the meeting. Thank you for coming, everybody.
thanks for coming.
Bye.